The hall was enormous, filled with light from sparkling chandeliers that hung like frozen waterfalls from the ceiling. Every corner of the room gleamed with polished marble, soft carpets, and golden accents that reflected the excitement and wealth of the evening. The charity gala was in full swing, and the air smelled faintly of flowers, champagne, and a touch of perfume. Waiters moved quietly through the crowd, carrying trays of tiny hors d'oeuvres, while guests laughed and shared stories, their voices mingling with soft background music. The billionaire, known for his sharp business mind and luxurious lifestyle, stood near the center of the room, greeting high-profile guests with a firm handshake and a polite smile. Cameras clicked and flashed whenever he smiled, as if capturing not just his face but his entire aura of power and success. Everyone in attendance was accustomed to being treated like royalty, and the halls of the mansion reflected that perfectly. The preparations for the night had been meticulous, from the arrangements of flowers to the position of the silverware. Everything had to be flawless. Near the edge of the hall, unnoticed by most, moved a cleaner, a quiet figure dressed in simple work clothes. She had spent her life moving through rooms like this one, cleaning and caring for spaces that others only saw for a few moments. Tonight, she had arrived early to make sure the hall was spotless before the evening's events truly began. She carried a small caddy with cleaning supplies, each tool a part of her routine. Its set of instruments she had mastered over many years. She wiped tables, adjusted flower arrangements, and carefully polished surfaces without making a sound. It was work that went unseen by the majority, but for her, it was a labor of pride as she moved around the room. A few guests noticed her but didn't pay much attention. Some whispered jokes under their breath, assuming she was merely a background figure, part of the scenery in a place built for wealth and prestige. One guest, standing near the balcony, nudged his companion and laughed quietly. "Look at her," he said. "I bet she couldn't play a note even if her life depended on it." The companion chuckled softly, but neither of them truly paid attention, beyond their own amusement. The cleaner paused near the grand piano in the center of the hall. It was a magnificent instrument, black and polished to a mirror shine, its keys gleaming under the light. She stood there for a moment, gazing at it with a mixture of reverence and memory. Her fingers hovered in the air above the keys, not touching them, as if remembering something long past. It was an instinctive gesture, reflex from years of practice and love for music that had not been expressed for a long time. No one around her seemed to notice. Guests were preoccupied with their conversations, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. The billionaire walked past, nodding at her and passing without a word, completely absorbed in his interactions with the elite crowd. She smiled faintly at the acknowledgement, though it was just a formality, and returned to her cleaning. Her life had been one of quiet moments, small gestures, and unnoticed efforts. She had grown used to moving through spaces without anyone truly seeing her. The evening progressed. Waiters poured champagne into crystal glasses, delicate appetizers were served, and the soft strains of a string quartet filled the background. Conversations bounced from one group to another, full of stories of success, travel, and influence. People were eager to impress one another, comparing experiences and achievements in a constant dance of social one-upmanship. Through it all, the cleaner remained in the background, moving with precision and care, her presence almost invisible. Yet there was a subtle tension in the room, a sense of expectation building for the performance that was to come later. The grand piano in the center awaited its musician, a performer whose fame and skill were well known. Guests occasionally glanced toward it, curious and excited. The cleaner's eyes followed the instrument, and she felt a stirring in her chest, a quiet acknowledgement of the music that had always been a part of her life. She remembered a time when her fingers had danced across the keys, when her own music had filled rooms like this with sound and feeling. Those days felt distant, almost like a dream. But the memory was vivid and real as she worked. She felt the weight of the room's attention, even if it wasn't directed at her. There was a sort of invisible energy in the hall, the hum of excitement and expectation that seemed to ripple through the air. She adjusted the final touches on the polished surfaces, straightened chairs, and ensured that nothing would catch the eye for the wrong reasons. Her work was meticulous, performed with care, because she believed that even unseen actions carried their own importance. A few guests, noticing her near the piano, began to whisper among themselves, not out of malice, but curiosity and amusement. They wondered what a cleaner was doing so close to an instrument meant for a professional musician. One young man joked aloud, a little too loudly for her comfort. "I wonder if she thinks she's going to play a concert." Laughter followed, and the group continued, not realizing the feint. An almost imperceptible smile that curved her lips. It wasn't a smile of arrogance or pride. It was the quiet acknowledgement of a truth they didn't yet understand. Time seemed to stretch. The performance was still a little way off, but the atmosphere in the hall was charged with anticipation. The cleaner continued her work, moving like a shadow, adjusting table settings, polishing glass, and wiping surfaces. Each motion was deliberate, precise, and careful. She had learned long ago that excellence was found in the details, in the small acts that often went unnoticed. And tonight, as she paused near the piano, those small acts seemed to carry a larger significance, though she could not yet see how. Occasionally, the billionaire himself glanced toward the piano. He was aware of its importance, its presence, and its role in the evening. He did not notice the cleaner in any meaningful way, but she did not seek recognition. She moved quietly, content to be part of the background, knowing that her contribution mattered, even if it went unseen. Her world had always been like this, quiet, unnoticed, and yet deeply felt. As the guests continued to enjoy their evening, the cleaner allowed herself a brief moment to stand near the piano and rest her hands on its edge. The smooth wood felt familiar beneath her fingers, and a memory flickered through her mind at time when she had played for an audience that had listened with rapt attention. When music had been her voice, her way of speaking to the world, the memory was bittersweet, filled with both longing and quiet contentment. She had not forgotten her past. Even if the world around her had moved on, the hall remained busy, full of laughter, conversation, and movement. But there was a subtle shift, almost imperceptible, in the air near the piano. The cleaner stood there, calm and composed, unnoticed by most, yet connected to something deeper and more powerful than anyone in the room could imagine. The keys of the piano called to her, not with sound yet, but with the promise of music and emotion that only she could bring. It was a quiet moment, a pause in the flow of the evening, a breath held in anticipation. No one in the room realized that this quiet, older figure, often the subject of jokes and whispers, carried within her a talent that could silence the entire hall. The guests continued their chatter, oblivious to the storm of music that waited just a few fingers away. The billionaire, standing confidently among his elite circle, had no idea that the evening was about to take a turn unlike anything he had imagined. And the cleaner, with her years of experience, her careful hands, and her quiet strength, prepared to take a step that would change the night for everyone. The candles flickered, the glasses clinked, and the conversations flowed. Yet the piano remained silent. Its black and polished body reflected the light, the room, and the faces of those who had not noticed the cleaner's presence. And for a moment everything seemed still. It was a pause, a breath before a story began, a story of talent, surprise, and the quiet power of someone who had always been underestimated. The cleaner's hands hovered above the keys, the memory of her past skill alive in her fingers, and the first note of a performance that no one expected was about to echo through the hall. The evening continued, filled with laughter, soft music from the string quartet, and the constant hum of conversation. The guests moved between tables and lounges, sipping champagne and exchanging polite compliments. Some discussed business deals and travel plans, while others compared charitable contributions and social connections. The atmosphere was lively, yet underneath it all was a sense of anticipation. Everyone was waiting for the main performance. It's the event that was supposed to leave them talking for weeks. The cleaner moved quietly through the room, tending to small tasks that no one noticed. She straightened a chair here, polished a silver tray there, and smoothed out the carpet near the piano. Her movements were practiced and careful, performed with a sense of pride and diligence that had been cultivated over many years. She had learned that even the smallest acts could make a difference, even if the world didn't acknowledge them. Some guests began to notice her more deliberately, whispering among themselves with a mix of curiosity and amusement. "Do you think she's going to play something?" one guest asked with a smirk. Laughter followed, quiet but unmistakable. The comment was meant as a joke, a light tease at the idea of a cleaner performing on a grand piano in a room filled with wealthy and influential people. Others joined in, chuckling at the absurdity of it. The billionaire, standing near a group of guests, heard the laughter and looked in the direction of the cleaner. His eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger, but with mild curiosity. He had seen plenty of unusual situations in his life, but the idea of a cleaning worker being expected to perform at a high-profile event was something he found amusing. He shook his head slightly and returned to his conversation, convinced that nothing significant could come from the situation. The cleaner paused near the piano, her hands resting lightly on the polished wood. She had heard the laughter and felt the whispers, but she did not react with anger or embarrassment. Instead, a quiet determination settled over her. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to remember the sound of her own music. The way her fingers had once danced across the keys with confidence and grace. The memory brought a faint smile to her face, one that no one else in the room noticed, a young guest. Emboldened by the laughter of his friends, called out, "Hey, maybe she can play us something before the real performance." The words were meant as a challenge, a joke, and the room responded with more laughter. The cleaner took a deep breath and slowly moved toward the piano. Each step was deliberate, measured, and calm. The sound of her shoes on the polished floor seemed loud in contrast to her usual quiet. But she did not hurry or falter. As she reached the piano, she paused and looked out at the audience. The guests leaned back in their chairs, expecting nothing, amused by the idea of a spontaneous performance from someone they assumed was incapable. The billionaire watched from across the room, his expression one of mild interest and amusement. Some photographers moved closer, thinking they might capture a humorous moment for later gossip. The cleaner lifted the piano lid gently, the soft click echoing through the hall. She seated herself, adjusting the bench to a comfortable height. Her hands hovered above the keys, feeling the smooth surface beneath her fingers. She allowed herself a brief moment to remember the hours of practice, the music she had created, and the emotion she had expressed through her playing. She was calm, focused, and ready. The first note she played was soft, almost hesitant. It carried through the hall like a single drop of water falling into a still pond. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, glasses paused in midair, and all eyes turned toward the piano. The note was simple but pure, and it caught the attention of everyone in the room. The cleaner's fingers moved gracefully, finding the rhythm and melody that had been dormant for so long. Each note seemed to carry emotion, telling a story that no words could capture. The room was quiet, filled only with the sound of the piano. Guests who had been laughing moments before were now leaning forward, their faces a mixture of surprise and wonder. The billionaire stood in place, his expression changing from amusement to disbelief. He had seen many talented performers, but this was different. The music was not only skilled, it was heartfelt, powerful, and commanding attention in a way that demanded respect. The cleaner played with a fluidity and passion that captivated everyone present. Her hands moved across the keys with precision, each note carefully considered, yet full of emotion. She seemed to merge with the piano, as if the instrument itself had been waiting for her touch. The melody rose and fell, carrying a story of struggle, resilience, and quiet triumph. It was a story that the room could feel even if they did not know its source. Guests were mesmerized. Conversations had stopped completely, replaced by a collective focus on the music. Some leaned back in their chairs, eyes closed, allowing themselves to be carried by the notes. Others watched in awe, mouths slightly open, unable to believe what they were hearing. The laughter and jokes from earlier moments seemed distant and irrelevant, replaced by a deep appreciation for the talent unfolding before them. The billionaire stepped closer, his curiosity fully captured. He watched the cleaner's hands move with skill and grace, each movement confident yet nuanced. There was no hesitation, no error, only the fluid execution of someone who had mastered their craft long ago. The realization began to dawn on him that this was not a casual performance. This was a display of talent that had been cultivated over years, hidden away from the world until now. The music swelled, filling every corner of the hall. It carried both strength and vulnerability, a delicate balance that held the attention of everyone present. The cleaner's eyes were closed as she played, completely absorbed in the melody and the emotions it conveyed. She did not play for recognition or approval. She played because it was a part of her, a truth that could not be silenced. The room had become a place where wealth and status no longer mattered, replaced by the universal language of music. As the performance continued, the initial whispers of doubt and amusement were replaced by admiration and respect. Guests who had joked about her earlier now sat in awe, realizing that they had underestimated someone they had barely noticed. The billionaire, who had initially found the situation humorous, now felt a profound respect for the cleaner and the depth of her talent. He understood that her life had been full of challenges, but her skill had never diminished. When the last note faded into silence, the room remained still for a moment, as if no one dared to break the spell. Then slowly, applause began to rise, quiet at first, then growing into a thunderous wave of appreciation. Guests stood clapping and cheering, some even moved to tears. The cleaner remained seated for a moment, letting the reaction wash over her, but she did not seek attention or praise. She had shared her music, and that was enough. The billionaire approached her, a look of genuine admiration on his face. "I didn't expect that," he said quietly. "Your talent. It's incredible." The cleaner smiled politely, her humility intact. "Thank you," she replied softly. "I just wanted to share the music." It was a simple statement, yet it carried a profound weight. She had transformed the evening not with status or wealth, but with the power of her talent and the authenticity of her performance. The guests continued to applaud, some lingering near the piano to offer personal words of praise. The cleaner rose, slightly bowing, but her demeanor remained calm and composed. She had taken a step that changed the perception of everyone in the room, proving that true talent cannot be hidden forever. The laughter that had once accompanied the idea of her performing was replaced by admiration, respect, and a renewed understanding of the value of skill, dedication, and courage. As the night moved forward, the cleaner quietly returned to her tasks, finishing the preparations she had begun earlier. The room buzzed with conversation about the unexpected performance, guests sharing their astonishment and newfound respect for someone they had underestimated. The billionaire, now deeply impressed, considered the evening's events with a mixture of amazement and humility. He had witnessed a lesson that wealth and status could not teach: the power of quiet talent, patience, and the courage to step forward when the moment called. The cleaner continued her work with the same care and dedication as before, but now with a subtle acknowledgement in the eyes of those around her. She had not sought recognition, yet it had found her. The hall, once filled with jokes and assumptions, was now filled with awe and respect. The night was no longer just about charity or social status. It had become a testament to the enduring power of talent, hidden strength, and the remarkable impact of a single, unexpected moment. And in the quiet confidence of the cleaner, there was a sense of fulfillment. Knowing that her music had spoken louder than words ever could, the cleaner stood quietly for a moment. After the applause had died down, her hands rested gently on the polished piano, and her eyes scanned the room. Faces that had been filled with amusement and curiosity were now full of admiration and surprise. The atmosphere had shifted completely. The guests who had whispered jokes and doubts before were now trying to process what they had just witnessed. Conversations restarted, but they were different this time. Filled with awe and respect for someone they had underestimated, the billionaire watched from the side of the room. Still processing the unexpected turn of events, he had seen many talented performers in his life, but few had moved him as deeply as this cleaner had. There was a confidence in the way she had played, not the kind that demanded attention, but the kind that naturally drew it. It was clear that she had lived with this talent for many years, perhaps longer than anyone could guess. And yet she had remained humble, working quietly in the background, allowing life to move forward without her recognition. As the guests continued to discuss the performance in hushed tones, the cleaner returned to her work, moving with quiet purpose. She polished the last few surfaces, straightened chairs, and ensured that everything was in perfect order. There was no need to bask in the attention. Her satisfaction came from within, from the knowledge that she had shared something deeply personal and powerful. The music had spoken for her, expressing what words never could. A few guests approached her hesitantly, their expressions a mix of admiration and embarrassment for their earlier assumptions. One older woman, who had been among the first to laugh at the idea of her performing, spoke softly. "I had no idea. You were amazing." The cleaner smiled politely and replied, "Thank you. I am glad you enjoyed it." Her tone was calm and unassuming, yet there was a quiet pride in her words. She did not seek flattery, only acknowledgement of what had been shared. The billionaire finally stepped closer, a look of genuine respect on his face. "You have incredible talent," he said. "Why have we never heard of you before?" The cleaner paused, her eyes meeting his. "Life takes people in different directions," she replied softly. "I have played before, but sometimes life requires other priorities. Music has always been part of me, even if it was not always in public." The billionaire nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Talent, he realized, was not always measured by fame or recognition. Sometimes it was a quiet, enduring force that waited for the right moment to shine. The room settled again as a few more guests moved closer to offer words of admiration. Cameras captured the scene, not for ridicule, but for the documentation of something extraordinary. The cleaner remained composed, accepting the recognition gracefully, without any hint of arrogance. She had done what she came to do, and the applause and attention were simply the natural result of her dedication and skill. The pianist who had been scheduled to perform later that evening arrived and paused at the edge of the hall, unsure of how to proceed. They had heard the music from the other room and could not believe the level of skill displayed by the cleaner. It was clear that the planned performance would now take a different shape, as everyone in the room had been profoundly moved by the unexpected demonstration of talent. The atmosphere had shifted, and even the professionals in the room recognized the power of what had just occurred. The billionaire approached the cleaner again, this time with a proposal. "I would like to offer you an opportunity to perform more regularly," he said. "This was remarkable, and the world deserves to hear your talent." The cleaner considered his words, feeling a mixture of humility and cautious excitement. She had never sought fame or recognition, but she understood that this could be a chance to share her music with more people, to reconnect with a part of herself that had long been dormant. The guests, still buzzing with admiration, slowly returned to their seats, though many continued to whisper about the unexpected performance. Some were inspired, others reflective, and a few were simply awed by the realization that they had misjudged someone so completely. The cleaner continued to move through the room, completing her work with the same care as before, but now with a subtle acknowledgement from those around her. She had changed the perception of the room without even trying. As the evening progressed, more people approached her to express their appreciation. Each encounter was met with her quiet grace and gentle smile. She listened politely, responded sincerely, and moved on without hesitation. Her presence in the hall was no longer invisible. She was now a figure of respect, someone whose talent could not be ignored. The contrast between the laughter that had greeted her earlier and the admiration she now received was striking, and it served as a reminder to everyone present that assumptions could be misleading. The cleaner's mind wandered back to the moment when she had first touched the keys that evening. The memory was vivid, filled with the sensation of the polished keys under her fingers, the resonance of the piano filling the room, and the reactions of the audience. It had been a powerful reminder of why she had devoted so much of her life to music. Even though life had taken her in different directions, the connection she felt to her art had never faded. Music had always been a part of her identity, a constant companion through both quiet and challenging times. The billionaire watched the interactions, clearly impressed by her humility and the impact she had made. He realized that true talent was not always about recognition or status, but about the ability to touch others in a meaningful way. The cleaner had done that effortlessly, and it had left a lasting impression on everyone in the room. Her performance was not just a demonstration of skill. It was a testament to perseverance, resilience, and the quiet strength that comes from living authentically. As the night continued, the cleaner found herself reflecting on the journey that had led her here. She had spent years honing her skills in private, often unnoticed and underappreciated. Life had required her to focus on other responsibilities, and yet she had never abandoned her passion. The piano had always been a part of her, even when it was silent. Tonight, she had allowed that part of herself to be expressed, and the response had been overwhelming. It was a reminder that talent, patience, dedication could not be contained forever. Guests continued to discuss the evening in small groups, sharing their astonishment and newfound respect. The cleaner moved through the crowd with quiet composure, finishing her work while observing the subtle shifts in perception around her. The laughter and jokes that had greeted her earlier had been replaced by admiration and reflection. The experience had not only showcased her talent, but it also challenged the assumptions and biases of those who had underestimated her. The pianist scheduled to perform later eventually approached the cleaner, expressing both awe and humility. "That was incredible," they said. "I have never heard anything like it." The cleaner offered a simple smile. "Thank you." "Music is meant to be shared," she replied softly. The words were straightforward, but they carried a depth of experience and understanding that resonated with the listener. It was a quiet exchange, yet it conveyed the essence of her philosophy, that true talent is about connection, not recognition. As the evening wound down, the cleaner continued her tasks with the same attention to detail as always, but now with a subtle sense of fulfillment. She had shared her music, touched the hearts of those present, and altered the course of the night in ways no one had anticipated. Her presence in the hall was no longer background. She had become a central figure, a reminder that extraordinary talent can exist in unexpected places. The billionaire approached her one final time before the night concluded. "I hope you will consider performing for larger audiences," he said. "The world should not miss this." The cleaner nodded thoughtfully. She had not sought fame, but she recognized the opportunity to inspire and connect with more people through her music. It was a possibility she had not considered before, yet it felt right. She had already made a profound impact tonight, and the thought of extending that reach filled her with quiet anticipation as the guests began to leave. The cleaner remained in the hall, completing her final duties. The room, once filled with laughter and casual conversation, had been transformed by the power of her music. The evening had started as another routine gala, but it had become something far more meaningful. The cleaner had reminded everyone present that talent, passion, and dedication could not be hidden forever, and that even the quietest individuals have the power to change perceptions and inspire. All, in the quiet moments after the last guest had departed, the cleaner sat at the piano once more. She allowed her fingers to glide over the keys, playing a soft, reflective melody for herself. It was a private moment, a way to process the events of the evening and reconnect with the part of herself that had been awakened. The music was gentle, flowing, and full of emotion, carrying the weight of years spent practicing, waiting, and hoping for the right moment. It was a reminder that true expression is not about applause or recognition, but about honesty, connection, and the courage to share one's heart with the world. The night ended with the cleaner leaving the hall quietly, carrying with her a sense of fulfillment and quiet pride. She had faced an unexpected challenge, transformed assumptions, and shared her talent in a way that left a lasting impression. The billionaire, the guests, and even the scheduled performers had all witnessed something extraordinary, a testament to the power of perseverance, skill, and humility. And in the silence that followed, the cleaner knew that her music had found its voice once again, touching hearts and changing minds in ways that would be remembered long after the evening had ended. The night had deepened, and the last of the guests were beginning to settle into quieter conversations after the initial shock and excitement of the unexpected piano performance. The cleaner moved with calm precision, checking that everything was in place, folding napkins neatly, and ensuring that the small details that often go unnoticed were attended to. Her hands moved quickly, yet each motion was deliberate, showing the discipline and care that had been ingrained in her over the years. The reactions of the guests continued to ripple through the room. Conversations were no longer light and superficial, but carried a new sense of respect and reflection. Many who had doubted or mocked the idea of the cleaner playing now found themselves humbled by the realization of how much they had underestimated someone they barely noticed. It was a quiet lesson about assumptions and the power of hidden talent. The billionaire, standing slightly apart from the main crowd, watched the cleaner work, a deep sense of curiosity and admiration in his eyes. He had approached her earlier, offering opportunities and praise, yet he now found himself drawn to understand more about the person behind the talent. He wondered how life had led her to this moment, what obstacles she had overcome, and what stories were hidden in her quiet demeanor. A few guests approached her, hesitating at first, unsure how to address someone they had previously ignored. One man holding a glass of champagne spoke softly. I don't know what to say." "That was incredible. You played as if the piano was speaking through you." The cleaner looked at him, her eyes calm and kind, and replied simply, "Thank you. I just wanted to share the music." Her humility struck everyone who heard her. There was no need for grand words or explanations. The music itself had conveyed everything that mattered. The scheduled pianist for the evening had also arrived, observing the scene quietly. They had been trained and practiced for years, expecting to command the room. But they now realized the cleaner had accomplished something far more profound than technical skill. It was not just the notes played, but the way each note carried emotion. The connection she had established with the audience, and the authenticity that shone through every gesture. The professional musician approached her cautiously, a mix of admiration and curiosity in their eyes. "I have never seen anything like that," they said softly. "How do you do it?" The cleaner smiled gently, not with pride, but with the quiet wisdom of someone who has lived a long life with a love for music. "It's not about doing," she replied. "It's about feeling. Music is a part of life. It speaks when you let it." The words were simple, but they carried a depth that resonated with the listener. The atmosphere in the hall had transformed. What had begun as a wealthy, social evening now felt more human, more connected. People were talking not about their status or accomplishments, but about the power of talent, resilience, and the unexpected beauty that can emerge from quiet, unnoticed corners of life. The cleaner, moving through the room, felt a subtle shift in the energy. She was no longer invisible, not because she demanded attention, but because she had earned it through her skill, her passion, and the courage to step forward. The billionaire, still observing, approached her once again. His tone was more thoughtful now, less casual than before. "I'd like to understand your story," he said. "How did you come to play like that and yet remain in the background all these years?" The cleaner paused, her fingers brushing lightly over the piano keys. She thought for a moment, considering how much to share. Then she spoke quietly. "Life has a way of asking for different things. I had opportunities to play, but other responsibilities took precedence. Music has always been part of me, even when it wasn't visible. Tonight, I wanted to remember that part of myself." Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of experience, sacrifice, and enduring passion. Guests gathered closer, drawn by the conversation. They listened intently, realizing that there was a story behind the performance that was even more inspiring than the music itself. The cleaner spoke of her early years, the hours spent practicing, and the moments of joy she had found in music, even when no one was listening. She spoke without complaint or bitterness, only with a sense of truth and resilience. Each word added depth to the performance they had witnessed, transforming it from a surprise into a powerful lesson in perseverance and quiet strength. The billionaire nodded, absorbing her words. He had encountered many people with talent, but few had shown the combination of skill, humility, and authenticity that she possessed. He realized that life had not diminished her ability. It had shaped it, adding layers of depth and emotion that could not be replicated. Her performance had not just entertained, It had taught, inspired, and reminded everyone present of the power of human spirit as the evening wore on. More guests approached her offering congratulations and apologies for their earlier assumptions. Each encounter was met with her gentle grace and quiet acknowledgement. She did not seek their approval, but she accepted it with dignity. Understanding the importance of recognizing the change that had occurred, the room was filled with a new respect, a subtle reverence for someone who had been overlooked yet had demonstrated extraordinary talent. The scheduled pianist eventually approached the cleaner once more, this time with a suggestion. "Would you consider performing at the next charity event?" they asked. "I believe your music could inspire many more people." The cleaner considered the request, her hands resting lightly on the piano keys. She had not sought recognition, but the idea of sharing her music more widely felt meaningful. She nodded slowly, a quiet smile forming. "I will consider it," she replied softly. "Music is meant to be shared, and perhaps the time has come to do that more often." Her words were met with a sense of understanding and respect from everyone present. The guests began to disperse, their conversations reflecting on the evening's events. Many expressed amazement at the transformation that had occurred, the unexpected beauty of a hidden talent revealed, and the lessons learned about assumptions, humility, and the power of dedication. The cleaner continued her tasks, finishing the final touches with care. Her presence, a steady reminder of the quiet strength that had reshaped the night. The billionaire lingered for a moment, watching her work. He felt a profound sense of respect and admiration. He had attended countless events, witnessed numerous performances, and met many remarkable people, but few had left such a lasting impression. He realized that true greatness was not always accompanied by fame or attention. Sometimes it existed quietly, waiting for the right moment to be recognized. Tonight, he had witnessed that greatness firsthand, in the quiet that followed. The cleaner allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought about the journey that had brought her to this point, the years of practice, the moments of doubt, the quiet sacrifices, and the persistent love for music that had never left her. The performance had been more than just a display of skill. It had been an affirmation of her identity, a reminder that her passion and dedication were valid, regardless of recognition. The piano, silent once more, seemed to hold the echoes of the evening's events. Each key bore the memory of her touch, the emotion she had conveyed, and the transformation that had occurred in the hearts of those who had listened. The cleaner stood quietly, taking in the atmosphere of the room, the expressions of respect on the faces around her, and the subtle shift in the energy of the hall. It was a moment of completion, reflection, and quiet satisfaction. As she prepared to leave, the billionaire approached one final time. "Thank you for tonight," he said sincerely. "You have reminded us all of the power of talent, humility, and courage. The world needs to see more of this." The cleaner nodded, acknowledging his words without embellishment. "I am glad I could share," she replied simply. "That is enough." Her statement carried a quiet wisdom, a sense of completeness, and a deep understanding of what truly mattered. The guests slowly departed, many carrying with them a sense of awe and inspiration. The cleaner remained behind, finishing her final tasks and allowing herself a private moment at the piano. She played softly, a gentle, reflective melody that seemed to encapsulate the emotions of the evening joy. Surprise, humility, and the enduring beauty of music. It was a personal moment, a way to honor the connection she had made with the audience and with herself. The night had begun as a typical charity event, filled with wealth, status, and casual social interactions, yet it had transformed into something far more meaningful. The cleaner's talent, patience, and quiet determination had changed the perception of the entire room. She had demonstrated that true skill and passion could not be ignored, that assumptions and judgments often fall short, and that even the most unexpected individuals can leave a profound impact. As she left the hall, the cleaner carried with her a sense of fulfillment, pride, and quiet joy. She had faced the unexpected, shared her music with authenticity, and transformed the evening in ways that would be remembered by all who witnessed it. The billionaire and the guests had learned an important lesson. and she had reclaimed a part of herself that had always been waiting for the right moment to shine. And in that moment, the power of music, humility, and human resilience had been made beautifully clear. The morning after the gala was quiet in the city, the streets calm and almost empty as the sun began to rise. Inside the mansion, the echoes of the previous night still lingered in the polished marble halls and the soft vibrations of the grand piano that had been played with such emotion. The cleaner entered early, carrying her usual small caddy of supplies. The hall was empty now, but the memories of the evening's events were still present, almost tangible in the air. She moved carefully, adjusting a table here, wiping a surface there, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the music that had carried through the night. The night had changed everything in subtle ways. Guests who had doubted her now spoke about her performance with admiration and respect. And even the billionaire had offered opportunities and recognition. But for the cleaner, it was not about fame or praise. It was about feeling alive again, about reconnecting with the part of herself that had always existed but had remained, hidden under the routine of life's demands. Music had given her purpose, and for the first time in a long while, she felt that purpose recognized, even if indirectly, as she moved through the empty hall. Her fingers brushed the piano keys lightly. The polished black surface reflected the morning light, and she felt a sense of intimacy with the instrument that only comes from years of familiarity and practice. She played a few soft notes, a quiet melody, not for anyone else, but for herself. The sound filled the space in a gentle, comforting way, like a private conversation between her and the piano. Each note carried with it a lifetime of practice, love, silent devotion to her art. Her mind wandered back to the reactions of the guests. She remembered the laughter and whispers that had greeted her initially, and then the awe and respect that followed. The transformation had been swift and profound. She realized that people often judge too quickly, missing the depth of talent that can exist beneath the surface. It was a reminder that patience, perseverance, and humility are sometimes the most powerful tools in life. The cleaner had learned this long ago, living quietly and letting her talent grow unseen, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The billionaire entered the hall shortly after, alone this time. He moved quietly, observing the space, still processing the impact of the previous night. When he saw the cleaner at the piano, his expression softened. He had seen many things in his life: success, failure, talent. Fully, but few moments had struck him as deeply as the music he had witnessed from someone he had underestimated. He approached her carefully, not wanting to interrupt her reflection. "You were extraordinary last night," he said, his voice calm but sincere. The cleaner looked up, offering a gentle smile. "Thank you," she replied softly. "I only played what I felt was right." Her humility was striking, even in a moment when she could have been basking in recognition. The billionaire nodded, understanding that her focus was not on praise, but on the music itself, the expression of something larger than personal acclaim.